Hi, I'm Ella, and this is Ella Podcasts. As someone who went through 2 rounds of IUI, 4 rounds of IVF, had 2 miscarriages, and never became a mother, this is a very difficult subject for most people to talk about. I've realized actually this is a subject that a lot of people don't even hear about. When IVF fails, we hear about all the successes and all the joy and achievement, but failure not to get talked about. So today we're going to be sharing our experiences on trying to become a mother and understanding the feelings when that dream eludes you and how your vision of having a family is destroyed. We'll share our personal experiences, our feelings and advice on how to accept your fate, so manage your profound disappointment and find new purpose. I'm joined today by Dr. Jonathan Marshall, who is a top psychologist and former professor. He's studied at Stanford and Harvard University, and he offers perspective and practical help to help you move forward. We've got Echo Wu here, who is a leadership and mental toughness coach. She works with people to increase their resilience and positivity, which we certainly need during such difficult times. And we have Grace Arthur joining us today. Grace is originally from India, but has been living in the UK and Singapore for a long time. She's a senior social worker with a master's degree in social work and a master's in human rights. Her work supports family experiencing domestic violence. And Grace has experienced her own deeply challenging IVF journey, which she's going to share with us today. So I'm going to start with a big subject, the enormity of being childless. And just coming from my own perspective, I mean, obviously as a woman, right from a very early age, you believe that getting married and having your family is a God-given right. And it's the natural course of life. So when that doesn't happen, it is for those people who wanted it, and I understand there's plenty of women now who choose not to have children, that's totally great for them. But if you did want children and you're unable to have them, it is such a profound loss in your life. And it's very hard to recover from that. So Grace, I know you've had a very challenging experience.
Yeah. I think mine, I always wanted to have a family. That was a goal of mine. But I think I was also quite firm that I would have a child only with a partner who I sort of felt would be in that journey with me. And I ended up meeting my husband when I was in my early 30s. And I remember discussing on our 3rd date about having children. And because
Fast
I want,
mover.
yeah. And I think both of us wanted to be on the same page regarding it. And I didn't want to date somebody who didn't have the same goals and values as me. And we were on the same page. And after a year or so of dating, we started talking about getting married. And I think I started then seeing friends who are trying to have kids and they're finding it quite difficult. So then we had a conversation. Maybe we should go see a fertility doctor to just check everything is okay.
And this is before you even got married.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we ended up going to a really nice clinic. And I think that was probably one of the toughest moments for me because the doctor examined you and it's very invasive, especially if you have not done these tests before. It was very invasive. I was a bit shocked, but I was okay.
What a poking and a prodding.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then after that, he got the results and he just looked at me and he said, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like,
wow.
What? And my husband was sitting next to me and I was like, "What do you mean what's wrong with me?" And he said, "Why did you wait so long?"
And you were 30.
I was like, yes. And I was like, I didn't mean to, but I was waiting to meet the right person because having a baby was not my goal. Having a baby with the right person was my goal. And then I asked him, "Is there something wrong with my report?" He said, "No." And he's like, "But I just think you waited too long."
So much judgment, isn't there?
Yeah,
about...
Ouch. How old were you?
I was 36.
You were 36 and you were scolded for waiting too long. Wow.
Well, they call you geriatric mothers as soon as you're over 35, which is very cruel.
Yeah.
Especially when you meet, I mean, I've got a friend who had a baby naturally at 52, and it was very healthy. And so we're kind of labelled as too old.
And my husband was just a bit shocked and he then asked him, like, "Is there something in the report that's worrying, or should we pay? It's like, no, everything is fine. Her uterus, everything is perfect. But I just think it's too late.
I just think it's too late.
And then he looked at my husband and said, you are fine.
Right. Well, so it's the woman's fault, as always.
And then I came home and I just started, it's that judgment.
Yeah.
And you feel like you've not been given a chance. And even though I think logically I know we're not trying for a baby, we're just talking about it. But then the judgment from a professional hurt me so much. I started researching about IVF. And we got married in October 2022. And then I straight away told my husband, we need to start IVF. And he was a bit...
He didn't try naturally for any time.
He didn't. He was a bit confused. But then I think he also knew where I was coming from. And he knew it was this doctor's judgment has had such an impact on me. So we went and saw another doctor. And the doctor was like, Grace, try for 6 months. Give it a go for 6 months. But this person's words had such a profound impact on me. I refused. And I said, no, I'm going to go do IVF. And he said, okay, try IUI. First, it's less invasive. We did 1 round of IUI and I was like, nah, it's not going to work. I want to do IVF.
Wow.
And January 2023, we started doing IVF.
So to slow it down, IUI is basically a very long plastic stick that they feed up near to your ovaries, and they squirt the semen so that it's in the same area as your eggs. So obviously it's when you've got eggs, so you have to take all the x-rays to show you've got the eggs, and it's pretty low success rate. But having said that, I've known women who've bingo first time, they've got pregnant with IUI. So January we started our IVF journey, and I think I overestimated my ability, or my body's ability, to experience the drugs, like the amount of medicines, drugs, and just the sheer pressure you face. But I think what made such a difference was, I think, having the conversations with my husband. And I had a wonderful IVF doctor who spoke to us about what this journey is going to do to our marriage, what it can likely do. We might come out of the end without a baby. How are you going to feel about it? And how will intimacy look like? So he had such long conversations with both of us. And I think that made a huge difference. And I know from friends, not all doctors do this. I think probably very few talk about that.
Yeah, and they're not required to do this, but he sort of went above and beyond to have these conversations with us. But the whole journey, it took about, I think it's 3 rounds. We spent a lot of money and time. And also emotionally, every time you hear it didn't work, you just feel very helpless. Because I think one thing this process really did was take away control of my body and how I was feeling. So when you don't have control of your body, you try doing all these little things to gain control. Like I go for acupuncture, do everything. Some friends of mine said, eat McDonald's fries after you have the embryo transfer. You do that one. Yeah, you do everything
Someone
possible.
from McDonald's?
You do all these, irrational things because you just want it to work.
Well, there's a million books obviously written on the IVF process and what you need to do to increase your chances. So, you go on a diet because there's foods you need to avoid. There's foods you should be consuming more. I mean, you've got to eat wholemeal bread till it's coming out your ears, and there's supplements you can take, and as you said, acupuncture, Chinese medicine. I mean, it's an endless list of what you can do to increase your odds, and it's all consuming because you're totally it's like training for a marathon. It's like, I'm going to make sure I'm doing everything right to give myself the best chance of success, but it doesn't always work out. You're feeling really confident, like, I've got this, I'm doing everything they're telling me, and then boom, it doesn't work.
How do you think that doctor's words impacted your ability to have a child?
I think I just thought my body has failed me before even I gave it a chance.
Do you think that thought encouraged your body to fail you, as it were? Probably. Do you think without having heard those words, you would have been able to conceive more easily? Yeah,
I mean, I would never know the answer because we never tried. We never tried naturally for 6 months or a year, which normally people do that. So I think for me, I've always said that it's that doctor's words that changed my life, truly. And I had to go through this journey for 3 years. And I always think, what if? And I think especially doctors are in such high position to influence how you think and function. And while his words, he might have just said, oh, what was wrong with you? But to me, that had such a big impact. And I kept thinking, oh, I wish I met my husband earlier. Oh, I wish I went on the dating app earlier. So I was trying to question all my life choices when I shouldn't, because I was quite clear in how I wanted my journey to go. But this doctor's words, it did impact me a lot.
And society as a whole, I mean, it's all about getting women to have their babies in their 20s. So get married when you're 26, 28 and have your baby straight off the bat, get going with it. And there is a lot of pressure, I think, when you're in your 20s, that if you haven't hit those 2 goalposts, then, once you're in your 30s, better get skates on. You're going to miss out. All the good guys are gone, and you're not going to have your family. I mean, I remember my mother saying to me in my early 20s, "Oh, you've missed the boat," and and you do have that sense of, I guess, panic that you've got to crack on with it. At the same time, as you've said, Grace, you want to meet the right guy, and you don't want to just say, "Oh, well, you're my boyfriend at the time, and I'm not convinced you're the one, but let's make a baby." So it's a dilemma.
I just read that by age 25, 80% of your eggs have gone. You've only got 20% left by age 25. It's like there's a huge biological, because I might have thought the clock is ticking and then it stops. I didn't appreciate how it gradually, or not so gradually, that process of fewer eggs and the implication starts quite young.
And that's why there's so many teen pregnancies, because when you're in your teens, you've got so many eggs. The likelihood of getting pregnant is very high compared to when you hit your 30s. It's certainly maybe more challenging. And then obviously you've got lots of people in their 40s still at it, and the pressure really is on at that stage.
One thing I've noticed in working with women who are hoping to get pregnant but having difficulty is how many of them hold an unconscious belief that is getting in the way. Now, it's hard to know. Maybe women who, maybe that's a biased sample, but, rather like in your case, you had the influence of this doctor causing you to believe that you would have trouble getting pregnant, be it that if I have a baby, in one person's case, it will cause me to die. Another person's, if I have a baby, it's going to ruin my life. The primary belief was, I want a baby, it will be good for me, but that something inside was quite significantly opposed to it. Hard to know if those unconscious beliefs actually affect the physiology, but it's an interesting question.
And times have changed also, I think, and women are now meant to have careers. So you go to university and you're meant to have a run at having a good career, but actually biologically those are your best baby making years. So a lot of women, I think, put baby making on hold, and it is getting later and later for a lot of people. But then you have the difficulties maybe, or it takes longer to get pregnant, or you may need to do IVF, IUI. So it becomes a whole different ball game. So I guess this is the argument for freezing your eggs.
Yeah.
But you don't always think about it when you're in your 20s, because it feels like, oh, I'll do that. No problem. I'll meet Mr. Right and we'll just pop out lots of babies and no problem.
And I guess the question of affordability comes into play when you want to freeze your eggs. And let's say in my 20s, I lived in the UK. If I'd frozen my eggs there and then I moved to Singapore, then how would that look like? So again, the burden falls on us trying to figure this out. But truly, if I think about it, if I did have a chance, I would have frozen my eggs in my 20s.
Really?
I always regretted that. But at that time, I didn't even know that was an option. And I had no idea. And I guess when you're in school, they say don't have sex, you're going to get pregnant.
Yes.
And then you just think it's just going to happen naturally. And I think when you're talking about society's role, I think for me, I was quite lucky that my father he's a feminist. So he's very much about get yourself financially independent, don't settle. and I'm Indian, so women usually get married before they're 30.
Yes.
And he never pressured us. Like, I've got an older and a younger sister. He's never pressured any of us to get married, have kids. And his only thing he would always say is, study hard, be financially, independent. And so for me, I've never had that pressure to have a baby. So that's, again, probably why the doctor's words had quite an impact on me, because this was this person of authority telling me what was wrong with you, when my parents have never said that to me. And so, yeah, I do think society plays a big role, but I think parents play such a significant role, because they sort of shape how you think about yourself and what's okay and what's not okay. And when I started IVF, I was quite secretive about it, because I was like, what would people think? But when I spoke, I have a very good boss. I had a very good boss. And I think work makes it such a big difference, because when women go through IVF, it's not just you. You need the community to support you. You need those time off to go get your injections. I would be doing training, and I would ask 5 minutes time to run to the bathroom and just inject myself. And then I'll go back and do the training. So if you don't have a team that understands this journey, it gets very hard. And that's when I told myself, you know what, why am I secretive about this? I didn't do anything wrong. I have to own this journey. So then I started openly talking in my organization about IVF. And then I realized there were other friends who are going through similar. They would text me saying, how are you speaking about this?
It's quite a taboo subject, because in a way it's saying, I failed the natural way.
Yeah.
So I'm having to go through, the difficult way. And it's not something you really want to tell everybody about. It's not something you feel particularly proud of, having to go through.
Yeah, I think the positive thing is there are more people like Grace, be more outspoken. On internet, there are a lot of people openly video taping and recording the whole process. I think one of the reasons why it's a taboo, of course, it's linked to the expectation of a woman. And it's not something like people celebrate. And the thing is, when you have no knowledge, so when someone come to a male manager and say, oh, boss, I'm going through this process and I need this. A lot of time, the male boss or even female bosses, they don't know what to say. That is why having education is very important. Let people know what does it that mean emotionally, financially, physically. And I just think there are a whole lot of work need to be done. We talk about diversity and inclusion, gender equity. I guess it's never going to be equal, simply because a lot of the activities are done by female, like carrying a baby, pregnant. When you are young, you are saying you cannot have sex because of this. And when you pass a certain age, you are expected. So there are a lot of expectations. And ironically, when we were, when a girl is young, the mental maturity is not there. So kind of also giving a lot of life control, emotional control to others, let people's expectation land on you. As you grow older and older and senior, you started to have those sense, oh, I am myself. I'm proud of myself. This is who I am. I don't need to be sorry, but it takes time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is more sharing for people who've gone through this, and let, for example, tips and the learnings from people who've gone through this. The more we share, the better, to get support and awareness from the society.
Obviously, Grace, we've heard about your IVF journey, and you've been through several rounds. And for you, IVF hasn't failed, because we're very happy to see that you have got your baby bump. So
thank you.
So huge congratulations, because I always feel, particularly for people who've gone through IVF, I know it's such a grueling journey, and you really deserve the positive outcome, because you go through so much, and it's not just physical, because it is physically painful and invasive, and if you've got male doctors prodding and poking, it's not a pleasant experience, but it's also the emotional roller coaster. It's horrendous. I mean, you've got such hope and highs and lows and false pregnancies, and it's it's a lot to go through. So
Yeah.
big congratulations
Thank
to
you. Yeah, it's been a tough journey. And I think every time I remember like seeing the pregnancy stick and it's not positive, you just feel like, your body has failed you. And then I would apologize to my husband. I'm so sorry. And he would be like, why are you apologizing? You didn't do anything. You tried your best. It didn't work. And I think it does test marriage to a great extent.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that a bit later. But I also think when you're talking about the body, it's hard not to feel anger towards your womb. And like, you kind of get irrational, like, this womb has failed me. And I used to think my great-grandmother had 11 healthy babies. 11. I can't pop out one. It's just, what's wrong? What's going on? And in my case, it actually wasn't me. It was my partner with low sperm mobility. So this is where it's basically stagnant. It's not moving. So it doesn't travel up to the egg. And IVF is needed to basically pick out the healthier looking sperm, and then they G them up with chemicals and put them into the egg to create an embryo. So, it's not always, people assume it's the woman's fault that you've got, fertility issues. And often it's actually not, it's the man.
And it never gets talked about.
No, and yet everyone assumes it's you. So
and when you talk about the physical experience, I remember a group of us, we were sharing different stage of whether it's giving birth or doing the process. Somehow that experience also differ from where you are doing it. Different country, definitely has different level of standards.
Yeah.
But to a certain standard, somehow the dignity part is being impacted. In a lot of cases, the female is feeling like becoming a piece of meat.
Yeah.
Right? You are just going through the process, all the pokes, all the tools, and you are no more than just a piece of meat on the table. So that has an impact on the mentality as well.
I realized it's because you want it so badly that you're prepared to put up with all the horrible part of it. And I don't think until you start IVF, you quite realize how, the injections into your ovaries are very painful. And then the chemical overload. I mean, you can literally smell yourself sweating out these chemicals. And, you have people telling you, oh, you're going to get ovarian cancer if you keep doing this, because, there is research to support that people who go through IVF are more likely to get ovarian cancer. And it's a result of all the chemicals. And obviously having your eggs taken out and then having them put back in, it's hugely invasive, but you put yourself out there because you want that baby so badly that you're prepared to go through all that pain and suffering. And when you don't come out with a baby at the end of it, it's hard not to feel really beyond disappointed. I don't even know what a word is, just devastated, I guess.
It's a kind of grief. I think it's a funny grief in the sense that we don't know how to grieve it. Like if someone dies, we have ceremonies, but you lose a job, it's overt. Like there can be a grief, but I think when you lose something, when you lose when IVF doesn't work, there's a kind of grief, but we don't in society have a ritual or a way of. You don't even get time off from work. You get an MC if you're sick, but it's hard to grieve.
Yeah, and actually you're grieving something huge. It's the loss of a dream, a loss of a family unit, a loss of, kids you're going to see walk down the aisle and have their families. It's the loss of your ancestors, carrying on the line, and it's so many things. And
sometimes it's the loss of an embryo, a child that was in utero.
Yeah,
it can be very hard. I've worked with a number of people who've gone through multiple rounds of IVF, and I don't know if it's from the chemicals used in the IVF or the psychological challenges, the sense of loss, the ambivalence around all of that. It's sometimes been a very hard depression to overcome, the sense of the weight and then the difficulty moving on from it.
Yeah, it is interesting because a lot of my friends, when we go through IVF, we always say when we see women, we can actually identify somebody who's gone through IVF by their body. Because when you take these chemicals, it does something to your body. Like the way there's like weird swelling, like, you're a bit puffiness. You can actually see if somebody is going through IVF. And I think for me, it was also particularly hard because I used to love going to the gym. I would go 5 days to the gym, and gym was my therapist because my everyday job was very stressful, working with victims of family violence. So I would go to the gym, work out, and I loved being fit. And once I started doing IVF, I had to change my routine. I could no longer do extreme strength training, and I didn't have the energy. Right. And then I started gaining weight, even though I've not changed anything. And then that has an impact on you because your sense of self. And you're like, why am I gaining weight? And my doctor said, some of the IVF medication sort of makes you resistant. So your metabolism slows down. And that was a shock to me. And
this is often what they don't tell you when you're preparing to do IVF, like the effect it will have on your body. And it can be a long-term effect as well. I mean, you can have your, one breast gets big and one gets really small, and you can have like your hips look
weird,
different from then on. I mean, I've had friends say to me that their body completely changed and never went back.
And I think for me to accept my new body, and again, it's the loss of control that I constantly felt like, how do I gain back control? How do I gain back control? And then you start doing all these little things, and Reddit was my best friend. I would go into these Reddit chats. What are people doing to make this a success? So if my first round works, then I'm done. I'll get my body back. So it's that constant need to have that control. And I think that's where medical professionals are so important, because my doctor would always address those things with me. He would always like, how's your eating? What's your diet like? Because he knew that these medications were having an impact on me. And he would often say, Grace, when you feel low mood, it's fine. It's fine. It's probably because of, the estrogen, it's all the medication. So I think giving you that knowledge and that information sort of helps you. You feel like you're not going crazy. And no matter how supportive your partner is, explaining it to them is a bit tiring. You're just like, you know what, I'll just go through this. I have no bandwidth to sort of explain to you, this is why I don't want to eat this meal today, even though 2 hours back, I really wanted to have that.
And sometimes partners don't want to hear, the difficulty you're going through and all the emotions. And, I felt like when you're trying to have a baby via IVF, everything becomes very clinical. Sex, frankly, is about now is the green light, or this is when we can do it, and it's mechanical, and it changes so much in your relationship from going, to being, kind of passionate and spontaneous to everything's got a purpose. And, I think a lot of guys are repelled by that, as they don't enjoy having to perform according to a green light on a machine saying, I'm ovulating, let's go.
Someone said to me literally in the last couple of days, he says, there's nothing less sexy than having to perform to make a kid. He's just like, when he was going through, when his wife was going through IVF, like, getting a phone call and he's like, can I get you a box of chocolates or flowers? And apparently she'd say, no, you need to be here now. He's like,
It's very, very tough on relationships. And I've actually heard of people who've split up after the IVF experience because their relationship has become so frustrated. And, I think both parties are feeling different emotions, and it can be very hard. And I think sometimes if a man is the one with the, fertility issues, he feels very responsible for putting a woman through all this pain to have a baby, and not being able to do it the normal, regular way. So it can put a lot of strain on relationships.
Yeah. I was amazed to find out that 1 in 8 couples struggle to conceive.
Wow.
And yet we don't talk about it much. And only 1 in 2 couples are successful with IVF, which means half of the couples aren't.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an alarming stat.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And we don't talk about it much.
Yeah.
And like you said, we don't hear about the 50% that fail. And this is why I'm doing this podcast today, because all I hear are the the happy endings. And Grace, I'm super glad you've got your happy ending coming. But I think for a lot of people, you know, you go through all that and then it's for nothing. And it's not just, you know, the physical toll and the emotional toll, but it's also financially.
Yeah.
You know, I had to sell an apartment to pay for all my IVF. So, you know, you look back and think, oh my God, that cost me an apartment. But at the same time, I knew for me, if I hadn't have tried everything humanly possible, I would have always thought, what if I tried that? What if I, you know, so I managed to draw a line under it and say, look, I did my very best. I did everything known to mankind. I can't fault myself for trying. And in a way, I can feel, like it. There was nothing more I could have done, frankly.
Yeah. I'm just curious because I hear a lot of time it is the belief the woman and the man, both of them hold. Eventually it's related to some form of if I have a baby, or we will be happy if we have a baby. And that translates to, if I don't have a baby, I will be unhappy and my womb failed me because I'm a failure. So there are a lot of translation, and all of these negative thoughts will start once one process is not successful. And of course, when one party is going through this, both the men and the female, when we talk about positivity, not everyone is the same. It's very hard to, you yourself is going through the process. It's very hard to take care of the other part. So I think there are a lot of challenges there. Again, for any medical process, we focus a lot on the physical side, and we forgot about all the mental journeys, the emotional journeys. The doctor who said, what's wrong with you? I just feel that there need to be some proper training for all the people who are holding these authorities in terms of taking care of people's feelings, because it's not just a physical journey or financial journey. There are a lot of things to take care of in terms of going through a change.
Prejudice, though. I mean, even people who are not married couples, you know, they can face issues, or there's same-sex couples having children and they face judgment. I mean, it's just one of those emotive subjects where, you know, people think they can just have an opinion on it and make your baby dreams seem wrong somehow.
So eventually it's always about one step back or a few steps back to look at why do I want this? What's really important? If I don't have this, who am I? I think these are all the very important questions to have an answer before, once you are in the process, it's easier to get lost and just taking all the advices. So really going back, having some of the process to really discover the self, the couple, the relationship, and along the journey, continue to go back to the foundation. I think that potentially will be something I recommend. And along the way, do a very clear financial assessment. That's something I think really important. Grace, you mentioned about the financial independence. You talk about that. Every woman I talk to, finance is the first thing come up. It's more than just the physical stuff. So financial, very draining. You need resilience. Yeah,
it's massive, and it's extreme. I mean, it's $1 billion business, and ka-ching if you're one of the fertility doctors in that business. But it could put a lot of financial pressure on couples and families. I've got a friend who, he took out a huge loan from his sister to pay for his rounds of IVF with his wife, and that obviously had an impact on that family dynamic and expectations to repay it. So it is it's a huge undertaking to commit to it, and that's why it's so emotional. And often you start off with these big expectations. You're like, I'm going to nail it first time. I think everyone goes in thinking, this is it. I'm going to get pregnant. I'm going to have my child, and this is it. And then you've done everything right, and then when it doesn't happen, I feel like each subsequent round of IVF, you become kind of less confident and more distraught or desperate, and it just becomes a sadder experience. And I think for the guy, they probably get a bit fed up of multiple rounds of costly IVF.
I think the guys can often feel very much like a loose tie, like where do I belong in this process? What do I do? It's all, so focused on the woman.
Yes.
And even sort of very supportive partners, I think, can feel quite alienated from this process.
Mm. I don't know about you, Grace, but I remember going through the IVF rounds, and, there's always that period where, I call it a legs in the air period, where you just have to kind of wait and pray to every god that exists and hope that the embryo sticks and takes. And it's like this period where you're on tenterhooks to find out. And you'll be reading a newspaper, and there'll always be a story in there about, a woman had a baby, threw it down a rubbish chute, killed it. Or, I remember reading there's a woman, she put her baby out in the snow on a balcony and it froze to death. And another woman pushed her pram with the baby into a desert and left it there. So you're reading all these stories of people who didn't want their babies and killed their babies. Whereas you and all these women are going through IVF, and it's just the cruelty of life. It can be so hard to tolerate at that time.
Yeah, I agree. I think because of my line of work as well, when you see families struggling with, domestic violence, and you see kids as part of that, I'm always wondering, here I am, just wanting one.
Yeah.
And why not me? What happened? Then you start questioning all your life choices. You go back to your 20s. Did I exercise too much? Or did I have too much alcohol? Or should I have been a vegan? Like all these things. Then you start questioning everything that makes you you. And I think that, again, changes friend dynamics within friends, because when friends of your age get married and they start having kids, they are also in a bit of a difficult situation, because they don't know whether to share this amazing happy news with you, because they feel, I'm going to upset her. But actually, when they don't share it, it's even more upsetting. Or they're like, maybe I shouldn't invite her to my baby shower. Sometimes they would not tell you.
And it is very hard to watch that as you're trying. And, some people get pregnant instantly and they do it every time. And the husband says, whenever I look at my wife, she gets pregnant. And it's such a lottery as whether you have that experience or not. And I remember a friend of mine, and she was Iranian, living here. And I was undergoing IVF for felt like the longest time. And then she got pregnant. And she found out it was a girl, and she was devastated it was a girl. And she kept telling me, oh no, it's a girl, and I really wanted a boy. And it really tested my friendship, because I just thought, you are so lucky, and what I would give to be pregnant with a girl, and all you can talk about is you're devastated it's not a boy. And even after she had the baby, she'd still be saying, I really wanted a boy. And, it's kind of no sensitivity chip that, here's someone undergoing painful, grueling IVF. It was very odd. But you have to, put on the brave face.
And then social media comes into play. Like, you're on Instagram and you're just like scrolling. And then you see your friends are giving birth, somebody's having a baby shower. And then it's just like, oh, my child, I'm so blessed to have my child. Then you start questioning, then you start hiding these people, from your Instagram. So you don't want to feel constantly having these things on your feed. And it's so interesting, because when I had my positive pregnancy test, there's no trace on my social media at all, because then you become a lot more sensitive because of what you've gone through.
And you want to wait until 4 months.
And I've not, I had my baby shower, I didn't post anything. For me, I just felt like maybe there's someone on my friends list who is in a very similar position, like I was maybe a year back. And I just don't want my story to maybe have an impact as somebody else's story had on me.
That's a shame in a way, because you should be allowed to celebrate and share it with the world, because it's a joyous thing. And more than anything, when you've been through IVF.
Yeah, but I think you just feel a sense of, I guess, guilt of how would this, because I know some of my very close friends are going through a tough time. And I would always think, oh, if I post it, I can easily hide my story from them. But that would make them feel even worse. If someone else says, oh, did you see Grace's story?
And also your integrity part. Right?
Yes. So I can't do that. So I just thought to myself, no, I think I can live with just my close friends knowing about this. I'm very happy about it. But I think I'm okay not posting everything about this journey on social media. Like constantly, oh, like today I ate this. Today my baby bump is this big. So so to be honest, only my very, very close circle of friends and my family sort of know about my pregnancy. I've just not been secretive, but I've just been mindful and a bit more respectful because I was in a very similar situation a year back.
And that actually reminds me of some of the phenomenon on social media is it's really a show and tell business. When you're really happy, when you're really content with your life, with everything you have, the need to post is actually less from what I hear from you. And that's also like a if we think about all the information we are receiving, sometimes we are very negatively impacted when we look at social media. A lot of stress. Oh, how come that person is doing this? They have achieved this. Why they are having a baby? Social media is, you just need to constantly remind yourself, social media is a place for people to show and tell.
And they want to show the best side.
Yes.
So it all looks like it's happy families. You know, everyone's looking so happy and great, and the kids are all, you know, wonderful. It's just that image of the white picket fence.
So I have friends who are come to peace with the stage of, okay, I'm going to be myself. I'm not going to have babies. And it's interesting when you talk about the people showing the positive side, because for me, I definitely know everything, the negative side. So when we look at this glass of water, if we keep looking at the gap and, how come I don't have the enough water compared to someone else? So if I always look at myself, why I can't go on a holiday like my friends? They are single, they can travel without a kid. I will be unhappy. So it's really a mindset. Eventually, come to peace with whatever you have rather than what you don't have.
I think it's a huge thing, coming to peace with it, though, and especially I think as a woman, when you feel like it's your destiny to have children, it's what we do, and that's part of the tapestry of the life we're supposed to lead. And it's, you know, for me, it is a massive void, and I know it always will be, but and obviously find ways to fill the void with other things, but it doesn't take away from not having that. And, you know, certainly, I mean, I had 2 miscarriages, which was very, you know, painful, because, you know, you're nearly there, but you didn't make it. And I remember I love going to fairgrounds, and, you know, sometimes I'll be on my own and there's a spare seat next to me on a ride, and I always look at it and think, you know, my child should be sitting there right now. And it's quite poignant, you know, thinking, you know, I'd have a child who's 15 right now, and I would have had another one who was 8, and it's a strange loss that it didn't come to light.
So in the Chinese culture, you know, in Singapore, in July, the lunar calendar of July, there's this almost like Halloween. The whole month, if you see people burning stuff, I don't know if that works, but some of my friends, they have this formality of memorizing the expected children every year through that month. That gives them some peace.
So I think, you know, as a woman, you know, you can't help but feel like we haven't performed our womanly destiny. You know, and when, especially when, you know, now I've just started menopausing, so that's it now. It's like the line has definitely been drawn. There's going to be no last minute goal, no miracle baby, which, you know, at the back of your head, I think after you've gone through such a long journey of trying to get pregnant, that in a way it's always there, you know, and it gets to the point where it's ridiculous, because it's like, you know, that time is gone and you need to move on, but it's really hard to move on. Any suggestions, Jonathan, on
I think it's a
forward?
tough one. I know of people who, many years past a miscarriage or an abortion, who continue to do a ritual around their loss. One lady I know, every morning she does a prayer to the child that she aborted, another to the miscarriage that she had. That these are such living parts of their life. I also know women for whom it hasn't had that kind of impact. But
well, for me, I bristle at the word abortion because I've always been pro-life. I believe it is a miracle, and for me, it's it doesn't sit well with me, abortion. But also when you're going through IVF and you have friends, which I did at the time, having abortions, you just think the irony of life. It's all so topsy-turvy. It's all so unfair. It makes no sense. Why, if there is a God or a universe, why give that person the baby? And they just want to get rid of it. And then someone who's, going through all this hope and expectation and pain and financial commitment doesn't get given it. It's really hard not to be angry, I think, with the universe. And if you do have any faith, I'm sure it really tests it to the limit because it is such an unfair process. I had an Irish friend at the time who she was Catholic, but she'd had 4 abortions. And it was just, her attitude towards it was so kind of casual. And, for me, it would have been an amazing miracle. And, it's hard not to get hardened by it and bitter. And for me, the only way I have worked through this is by really taking on, a hobby, frankly, that has distracted me and I've thrown myself into, and that's become my baby. As corny as it sounds, it's now my baby, but it is, and it kind of gives me purpose and distracts from the emptiness of not having the kids and our family to yours and all of that.
Yeah. I think, to just go back to what Jonathan was saying about some people have a profound impact where they grieve this loss for many years and some don't. I think often, like at least for myself, I've always tried to look at my experience with IVF with a trauma lens, because trauma affects each of us in such different ways. There are some people who go through 10 rounds of IVF and are very objective about it. They're like, I prepared, I knew there's very little chance it's going to work. Now it's not worked. I'm drawing the line and I'm moving on. And then I have friends who are going through 10 rounds, 15 rounds of IVF, spending so much money on it, and still they can't sort of stop. And they do all sorts of things to cope. And I feel like both sets are experiencing maybe a form of trauma. And I guess both of them are coping in whatever way they can. One person is choosing to draw a line, stop in it, and move. I wouldn't say moving on, but rather trying to do something else. And the other person just can't let go. And it's most of the women, I'm in a lot of IVF WhatsApp groups, and most of the women who are in the groups are constantly asking, I finished my 8th round, it didn't work. Maybe it's my doctor. Maybe I need to move to another clinic. Do you know any other clinic? So it's just you're constantly on the search for the next miracle that's going to end up giving you that baby. I think one of the hardest things I think my friends do is saying, this is it. Like
it's not easy.
Just drawing that line and saying, I'm not going to do it anymore.
And for a lot of us, it is financial. You reach that point where I've spent my budget. There is no more. It's game over. And you can only hope for a natural miracle to occur. But, there's a finite financial ending to it. For those who run out of their money, their budget allocated for IVF, there has to be a finite end to it. And it is purely financial. But then again, those people who keep going, there's definite health risks they're taking, not just to themselves, but also to any babies they might get pregnant with. And I think we've probably all heard of, I heard of a a lady who, you know, she had so many rounds of IVF and she ended up having triplets, but all 3 of them were special needs or like severely disabled. So, you know, I think you've also got to look at where do you draw the line. And I don't know whether you say accepting fate, but for me that kind of helped, thinking I did everything I could. Yeah. I couldn't have tried more. And this is my fate. I'm obviously not meant to have a child, and, you know, I have to accept that. And you do, I think at some point you do, because there is no other option but to accept it.
Yeah. And I think when women go through IVF, the harshest critics are ourselves. Like, it's us, no one else is like being pushed, like sort of asking us to keep going. A lot of the times it's just us wanting that, you know, that baby. And I think when I was going through the process, I always, every step of the way, I told myself, just be nice to yourself. So I used to have like jars with a lot of like things I would want to say to myself on a hard day. So on a day when the injection is extra painful, I'd go to the jar, take the little thing out, and I'd read it out loud, looking into the mirror, and sort of tell myself, you know what, you're doing your best.
Yes.
And I think with a lot of my friends, that's something I constantly share with them, to say, be nice to yourself. Go on that trip. Don't postpone that trip you want to take because of IVF. Go to the spa. Don't, you know, stop your life because you're going through IVF, even though that's what, you know, every bone in your body is sort of telling you, you know, save that money towards IVF. Don't go on that trip. I'm always like, no, just go to that trip to Bali. Just as much as it's hard, we have to live our lives, because otherwise it just gets all consuming.
Yes.
And you are at a risk of losing yourself, your identity, everything that you built because of this process. And I think I'm quite mindful, because for me, I mean, it worked.
Yes.
But I know for a lot of my friends, it didn't. But I also, whenever I speak to them, I can see them slipping into that void almost. And you feel very helpless.
Yeah.
But the only thing you can sort of do is just be there and sort of keep telling them, hey, I'm here for you. So I think people around women who are going through IVF have such an important role to play, because you have to support them. Even if you don't understand why they do it, why they're sort of like suddenly not eating chicken anymore, they want to just eat tons of broccoli, just let them eat broccoli. Don't question them.
Yes.
Because it might be irrational, but to them, it gives them a sense of control. They're trying to make sense. We are trying to figure it out as well. Yeah. So I often think like we have to be really kind to ourselves. If not, this process is very unforgiving.
I think most people who go through the process, they could write a book on IVF by the end of it. All the tips and supplements and do this, don't do that. I mean, it's, you know, you have to trust that those people going through the process have done their homework and they're fully invested. And, you know, as you said, just be a good friend. And it is important to be kind to yourself, because it's very easy to fall into blaming your body, you know, saying my womb's useless, I'm not a proper woman, you know, and like just getting so angry with yourself for the failure, and that gets you nowhere. Yep. Huge topic.
Huge.
I mean, obviously, there's also the other side where, you know, some people then choose to adopt or foster or, you know, make other decisions or use a surrogate, a donor egg. I mean, it's just endless possibilities. But I think when it's, you know, that dream of having your own child, that's a big one to release. Yeah. Okay, so any final thoughts or advice on coming to terms with not becoming a mother?
It doesn't mean you're not an adequate person. It's very easy to feel ashamed and to think you're inadequate. And it doesn't mean that.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And I think for me, when I started my journey, I was quite, very positive. And I think throughout the journey, I just realized that the only thing mattered more than anything was me. And I needed to be mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy for me.
Yes.
And the baby was an ideal outcome, but it was not an outcome at the expense of me. So I think throughout my journey, I kept telling myself that not to get lost in the books, the supplements, no matter how much that voice inside is telling me, Grace, do it. It's just one more appointment. The massage, they said, is helping. The uterus massage, the womb massage helps.
I did so many of those.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not going to lose myself. So I think having boundaries is so important, but I think prioritizing self and not losing your identity is probably the biggest lesson I've learned. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't agree more on the appreciation, be kind to yourself. But also, I am definitely I'm practicing a lot of meditations, mindfulness, breathing exercises. I think these are the things that's really helpful. Sometimes we don't like the idea of surrender, but meditation around self-love, surrender, be grateful for what you have, those definitely helped. And if possible, also talk to someone who can help you to maybe challenge or mirror and reframe some of the belief that like you are kept in a cage that you created for yourself. So these are my couple of maybe tips. Really be present will be the fundamental thing. Be present and live in the moment and enjoy yourself, take care of yourself.
And for me, it's really, coming to terms with it ultimately is it frees you from all the expectation, all the angst, all the disappointment and sorrow. And you need to get there for yourself. And for me, I kind of embraced more of a fatalist view of the world than I had previously. And I felt like, well, it wasn't my destiny in this lifetime. And, I have to acknowledge that and really channeling your energy into something positive. So, finding something you enjoy, something that gives you joy, a hobby, something you might be volunteering for, but throwing yourself into something else. I mean, you could look at it as you're just distracting yourself, but at the same time, it fills the gap and it takes up your time and you find new things to fill your life with. So it helps with that process of letting go of the dream and not being one of those lucky people that has children. Thank you for joining us today on Ella Podcasts. If you know someone who this will resonate with, please share it with them because it might help them feel that they have some help to navigate this very painful topic. If you want more episodes on this subject, please join our Facebook page at Ella Podcasts and message us. Please rate and share. Wishing you the strength to keep going and sending you a big hug.